Let's quietly dive right into a really fascinating observation today. In this explainer, we're unpacking the source material for Reflective Humanism number 99. Now, I want to invite you to kind of step away from the usual motivational advice or self-help frameworks you might be used to seeing. We're not going to talk about how to succeed or radically change your life today. Instead, we're doing a calm, structural observation of what the future actually means. It's a subtle shift in perspective for sure, but it's one that completely changes how we view hope, resilience, and honestly, civilization itself.
So, here's a question. Is the future simply what comes after the present? It seems like a super simple question, right? We generally have this default assumption that time just moves forward on this fixed track. We kind of think of the future as a specific destination we're just rushing toward, a place where everything is already determined by the tracks we lay down today. But if everything is already determined, does choice still have meaning? Let's gently disarm that assumption and look at the future from a totally different angle.
Section 1. Rethinking the Future, the Possibility of Choice.
In previous chapters of Reflective Humanism, the text explored this feeling that the future remains open. But how does it continue to remain open? Well, the central idea we're unpacking here is that the future isn't just a continuation of time on a clock. Rather, it's a state in which possibilities can still be chosen again. The future exists as long as there's still a choice to be made. And the key concept that unlocks this whole idea is an option. Now, when we hear the word option, we usually just think of a consumer choice, like picking an item off a menu. But the source material frames it much more profoundly. An option is the ability to decide later. It's the structural capacity to try again, or to connect to another path entirely. It's not just a choice, it's literally a vital point of connection to the future itself.
Let's ground this abstract philosophy in everyday life for a second. Changing jobs, moving somewhere else, learning a new skill, asking for help. These aren't just actions, they are unclosed pathways. You might not use them right now, right? You might stay in your current job or your current town, but simply knowing that these options exist, knowing that you could decide later, is very often what makes the present bearable. The future feels open simply because these options haven't been erased.
Section 2. The Architecture of Hope, Unclosed Pathways.
So what does hope actually look like when we view the world through this lens of preserving options rather than constantly trying to guarantee success? The text puts it beautifully. Hope is not the certainty that everything will go well. Our modern world often pushes this kind of forced, aggressive optimism on us, this idea that if we just work hard enough, success is guaranteed. But the source text completely dismantles that. True hope doesn't require a guarantee. It isn't about knowing for sure that you're going to win or arrive at a perfect destination.
Instead, hope is just the quiet feeling that another path may still remain. Even after a major failure, even after a massive change or a long delay, a future remains open and hope remains alive as long as your options haven't been completely closed off. Hope is simply the structural resilience of having one more door you can gently push open.
Section 3. The Efficiency Trap, Losing the Margins.
If options are so absolutely crucial for hope, why do we constantly seem to be losing them? Well, let's zoom out from the individual for a moment and look at the organizational level. Here, there's a constant, quiet tension between our modern obsession with efficiency and the preservation of options. Now, efficiency is undeniably powerful in the short term. It gets things done fast. But when hyper-efficiency becomes the only goal, we lose the margins. Redundancy disappears, dissent is silenced because, frankly, it slows things down. On the flip side, long-term resilience requires exactly the things efficiency hates: informal conversations, experimentation, and an actual tolerance for failure.
When an organization strips away its margins just to become perfectly efficient, a quiet crisis occurs. The organization rigidifies. So when the environment shifts, they can only offer rigid responses. Because there's no tolerance for failure, errors get concealed rather than learned from. They adhere blindly to precedent. They haven't just failed, they have literally lost the structural ability to choose a different path when a crisis hits.
Section 4. Civilizational Resilience, Preserving the Margin.
Expanding the scale one final time, let's move from organizational dynamics to the survival of entire civilizations. How does a civilization maintain its resilience? By preserving the margin. The source text offers a really fascinating redefinition here. We normally think of resilience as bouncing back, returning to the way things were before the disaster. But true civilizational resilience is actually the capacity for a phase transition. It's the ability to move into another stable state when returning to the past is no longer possible. You can't bounce back to yesterday, but if you have options, you can step sideways into a viable tomorrow.
To achieve that kind of phase transition, a civilization actually requires elements that might seem entirely counterproductive to us today. Multiple, redundant paths, slower systems, localized communities, or life worlds that operate totally differently from the global standard. The irony here is that these inefficient margins are actually vital safety nets. An obsession with perfect optimization and endless growth destroys these different paths, leaving the civilization incredibly fragile when its single, highly optimized system inevitably faces a shock.
Section 5. Option Preservation, the Reflective Humanism Spiral. How does all this connect to our personal philosophy and the broader spiral of reflective humanism? We've talked about personal hope and global resilience. They both come down to how we handle the spaces between our decisions. Our modern impulse is very often early closure, forcing an immediate conclusion, rushing to an answer, or categorizing something as purely good or bad just to be done with it. But reflective humanism advocates for suspended judgment. Leaving the question open isn't a sign of weakness or confusion. It's a deliberate, structural choice. By suspending judgment and allowing for cognitive renewal, we are actively preserving options for our future selves.
And that brings us to the core thesis of the text, option preservation. It means designing the present without overdetermining the future. It isn't about refusing to act or refusing to decide. It means acting in a way that doesn't needlessly destroy the possibility of choosing again later. It's about recognizing that our current optimal solution might become tomorrow's trap. So we really must leave a little room to breathe.
Section 6. Preserving our future, the final inquiry.
As we conclude this explainer, I want to invite you to integrate this shift into your own overarching worldview. It's a question that really stops you in your tracks, isn't it? When we try to protect the future, what are we really trying to protect? We make so many default assumptions as a society about what a good future requires, and we often just totally exhaust ourselves trying to lock that specific vision into place. Are we trying to protect success, the endless, exhausting pursuit of growth, a rigid, unbreakable stability? The text gently questions if these things, which essentially force us onto a single, highly optimized track, are actually the things that keep civilization, or ourselves, safe. Perhaps true protection isn't about guaranteeing success at all. Perhaps it's simply maintaining the structural margin, that quiet, unoptimized space to breathe, to fail, to adapt, and to redirect. The freedom to just say, well, that didn't work out, let's try another way. The future is not a fixed destination that we are speeding toward. The future is quietly preserved within options that have not yet been closed. It lives in the unclosed pathways and the suspended judgments. I'll leave you with that lingering thought today. Take a moment to look at the margins in your own life, and perhaps you'll find that the ability to simply choose again is actually the greatest hope we have.